Hey everyone, Mitch coming for the Commander Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So first up, might sound just a little bit different. Kind of lost my voice yesterday. Maybe over the weekend I was at a roller coaster park and was screaming on some rides, and that might be what happened. Regardless, I think I'm up for a recording today. We will see how this goes. Yeah, excuse me for just sounding a little bit different on this episode. A little deeper voice on this episode, and it's going to be a bit slower probably, but let's jump into it. So on this episode, I want to talk about, well, some brand new exciting cards that are going to be coming out shortly, I believe. I think Doctor Who releases on the 13th for its sale. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, we got some exciting ones. Let's jump into one that really stood out to me, though, with Gallifrey stands. And my apologies if I mispronounce anything or everything, because, yeah, I'm not a Doctor Who fan, though I do like the design of these cards. It's a legendary enchantment for 4 white and a blue. Enters the battlefield, return all Doctor cards from your graveyard to your hand. Beginning of your upkeep, you may put a Doctor creature card from your hand on the battlefield. Then if you control 13 or more Doctors, you win the game. Now, again, I'm not a Doctor Who fan. I don't know how many Doctors we are getting. I've seen a couple so far. I mean, I think one of them said 13 on it, like the 13th Doctor. And also this does say 13, so I'd assume we're getting exactly 13 Doctors. Let me know in the comments below if I'm wrong on that. That being said, yeah, this is a brand new alternative win condition that I definitely did not expect to see. It's very specific creature type win con, essentially. And this is one, though, that, well, hey, you can do in other ways. There are other ways to go about this. You don't have to make a Doctor-themed deck to win this. Of course, there are ways to go about that, obviously. And I mean, ETB, getting all your Doctors from your graveyard back to your hand, that can be absolutely huge. Being able to get a lot of recursion with that. 6 mana is a good amount, and again, this is an upkeep win condition, so you need to keep this in play. Cheating out a Doctor for free is nice. Yeah, I mean, there are ways to win without, 13 different Doctors. I think all the Doctors are legendary, so cloning doesn't work in some ways, but does work in other ways. If you got like Takashima, great. Or like Mirrorbox, those kinds of things. Yeah, you can clone then essentially make more and more copies. So that could be a way to go about and win. Or, yeah, more likely, Changelings. Yeah, if you just make a full Changeling deck around this, you could probably win quite easily just by getting Changelings out into play. Obviously, this works for Changelings. Changelings are also Doctors. They're also Vampires. They're also everything, essentially. So, yeah, they are, well, apparently, good for medical practices, being a Doctor themselves. So, yes, you can win with Changelings with this really crazy card. And yeah, you can cheat Changelings into play as well. Or if you got Maskwood Nexus, that actually works as well. Basically turning all your creatures into Changelings, making them Doctors as well. A very interesting one. One that is decently hard to pull off. But yeah, we shall see what kinds of decks get built around it. Moving on though. This is one that my playgroup sent me, I believe this morning actually. Bigger on the inside. It's an enchantment aura for 3 red and a green. Enchant artifact or land. Enchant permanent has tap. Target player adds 2 mana of any one color. The next spell they cast this turn has Cascade. Again, cascading basically means that you reveal at the top of your library until you hit something slightly smaller, essentially, and then there you go. You get to cast that for free. Non-land card, I should say. That being said, yeah, this is a lot of value. I'm not sure exactly how many decks it's going to go in. When it comes to enchant lands, like wild growth type effects, the lower to the ground ones do see some play, but when it comes to the higher, ones essentially, yeah, like something market. I should know the name of that one. It's in my Garth deck, but yes, unless you're a more specific deck, you're probably not looking for this kind of a card. That being said, if you have a Cascade deck, yeah, this could definitely come in handy, or one that likes casting things from exile and benefiting from that. But yeah, my Garth deck, absolutely in love with this card. My Garth deck just loves essentially cards that, let your lands tap for extra mana, because I like to untap that land and then tap it again and again and again. And that Cascade on top of that is just a very, very nice thing. So yeah, again, definitely not for a lot of decks out there, but the decks that really want this again, Cascade, or ones like my Garth deck that like to enchant lands. Next up, a very interesting one, Gallifrey Falls and No More, a Fuse card. I haven't seen one of those in a while. So again, you can cast either side of this essentially, or both together. Gallifrey Falls, instant for 6 mana, 4 red, red. 4 damage to each creature. If a creature dealt damage this way would die this turn, exile it instead. So permanently getting rid of some things. Kind of a middle tier board wipe, essentially taking out those mid to small creatures. Instant speed is nice. That being said, you can make this pretty one-sided with No More. 2 and a white, instant speed. Any number of target creatures you control phase out. So that is quite the interesting one. This is interesting because, well, phasing, there's times when it's going to be better and worse than just straight up, blinking essentially. Blinking is better for most decks, I would say, when it comes to, hey, I've got creatures that might have some ETBs. Yeah, I'll blink them all with like an Eerie Interlude. They go away, they come back, and I get those ETBs again. Also, when it comes to that too, well, yeah, I mean, you can also avoid board wipes if it's like a delayed blink. Like, hey, they come back at the end step. Cool, you avoid the one board wipe. This can technically avoid more than one board wipe. Again, you're phasing creatures out, if it's on the first opponent's turn, essentially, then yeah, you phase your creatures out and you say, okay, they're gone. They avoided that board wipe that you cast. If you cast a board wipe or you cast a board wipe for whatever reason, I'm avoiding those as well. That being said, this is high risk, high reward because, yeah, if you phase your creatures out, you're also wide open to other plays too. So obviously this can be a one-sided board wipe combination if you get the mana for it. 9 is a decent amount. We are in Commander. We've got ways to ramp, of course, so we can get there. That being said, it's nice, it's flexible. We're going to see how much play this actually sees, but one thing to keep in mind is that this is really good with token decks, because when it comes to tokens, yeah, you can't blink them. An Eerie Interlude does not work in, your go wide token strategy deck, because you just get rid of the tokens. If they get exiled, they're not coming back. That being said, if you phase out a creature that is a token, it just goes away. It's still like there, but not there, and then it comes back. I think it's your upkeep, essentially, right, when you phase back in. That being said, yeah, tokens, equipment decks, aura decks can definitely consider something like this. Instead of, losing out on those auras or equipments being attached, yeah, you get to keep the creature attached with everything, essentially just phased out and phased back in. So it's a very interesting board wipe protection / board wipe / kind of like mini one-sided board wipe spell. Yeah, there's a lot to it. I think this can see a decent amount of play for the right decks out there. Next up, speaking of which, Crisis of Conscience, sorcery for 4 white. Choose one to throw out tokens, throw out non-token permanents. Yeah, again, a token-based strategy is going to love this kind of a card. Again, basically a one-sided board wipe for those. I mean, if you're playing against a token-based strategy too, yeah, destroy all the tokens. But if not, hey, keep all your tokens in play. You're going to destroy all non-land, non-token permanents. This is just basically everything. Again, if your opponents don't have any tokens in play, keep in mind, this doesn't like specify creature tokens or anything like that. So if you've got, clues, you've got treasures, you've got food, etc., 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 cool, you got those. But yeah, more importantly, creature tokens. Usually, yeah, you're gonna have a one-sided board wipe that you're just like, yeah, cool. Let's just add on to the pain for my opponents, destroy everything. Yeah, you might lose, say, your commander or any enchantments or, artifacts that you might have too, but this can be very one-sided for you and kind of leave you wide open to do a lot of crazy things. So a very good card in the right strategy. Next up, River Song's Diary, a very interesting card. Artifact for 3 imprint. Whenever a player casts an instant or short spell from their hand, exile it instead of putting it in a graveyard as it resolves. That is kind of crazy because, well, hey, I mean, if you got flashback, if you got those kinds of cards, they're just gone, okay? They're gone, but they're not gone forever. At the beginning of your upkeep, if there are 4 more cards exiled with this, you choose one of them at random. Love that. You may cast up paying its mana cost. So essentially, you're just saving up every single player's spells that they're casting, the instants and sorceries. And yeah, you just get a random one for free. Now, this can be, again, you don't have to cast it. So it's like, oh, Wrath of God, I don't want a board wipe. Yeah, then you know what, you're not going to get any use out of that. That being said, most of the time, this is just extra free value for you. Now, how much value is this going to have for you? I'd say you probably want to lean more into if you actually have a decent amount of instants and sorceries in your deck and you don't really care about having them in your graveyard, if you don't have like Rise from the Tides or whatever that one card is that makes zombies based on the number in your graveyard, or if you don't have any ways to recur them, yeah, that could be one that you could really take advantage of just to get some additional free value throughout the game and also getting your opponent's free value throughout the game too. So yeah, whether they're, casting a cantrip spell so they can draw cards, a removal spell, whatever it is, getting extra free value out of this can be great. Of course, you might actually end up with nothing out of this though too, because to keep that in mind, you are going to just have this in play sitting there, and if an opponent just removes it, you just lost out on that. You got nothing out of it. So keep that in mind. That being said, a very interesting card. Also, keep in mind though, for decks too, that also have benefits that, from casting things from exile. This can definitely help you as well. Again, you can get extra benefits just once a turn, essentially, once each of your turns, I should say, getting additional free cast that you get additional benefits from. Moving on, a very interesting one, Decaying Time Loop. Instant for 3 and a red. Discard all the cards in your hand, then draw that many cards. Retrace. And again, Retrace, not a typically used mechanic that we see very often, but one that is very interesting. You may cast it from your graveyard by discarding a land to pay its other cost. This is one that you can just keep recasting out of your graveyard again and again and again. And it's one that kind of like refuels itself in a way, because again, if you don't have any lands in your hand after you do it once, yeah, you're gonna discard your hand. You might go get more lands in your hand potentially you can then use for this to hopefully get a better hand. Now, again, it's called Decaying Time Loop because you're technically losing out essentially, right, each time. I mean, I guess the first time you're losing out more so because you're casting this from your hand and then it's in your graveyard. So, and then you got to lose out on the land. So you're losing out on 1 card every single time you're going down. That being said, if you got ways to wheel, kind of reset that back up to 7, and then, be able to just kind of recur this essentially again and again and again to get a lot of value out of it. If you've got a deck that can benefit you from drawing cards, if you maybe have like a Thought Reflection or Teferi's Ageless Insight in play to double up your draw, that can be huge, or ways to punish your opponents when you're drawing, like Psychosis Crawler, or ways to punish your opponents when you're discarding. Definitely ones to consider with something like this. An interesting card, again, there aren't really too many. This is like a diminished wheel effect, I would say. It's one that goes down. It doesn't reset to 7, it doesn't reset to the exact hand size, it's going down 1 each time. But I don't think there's really any wheels like this that are just like, hey, very repeatable. Like a Dragon Mage maybe, but when it comes to a very repeatable wheel, and again, one for a Spellslinger deck that's like, hey, cool, you get to cast an instant again and again and again at your graveyard. What's not to love about something like that? Next up, a very interesting card, Don't Blink. That is terrifying art. Instant for 1 and a blue until end of turn. If 1 or more creatures would enter the battlefield from exile, or after being cast from exile, their owners shuffle them into libraries instead, cycling for 2. That is brutal. The first thing I think about is Brago, essentially. That, hey, you're playing against your friend's Blink deck. Blink is very easy to use and abuse and get an absurd amount of value out of, and all of a sudden they blink their entire army, and then it's just gone. Again, keep in mind, this does just say creatures. This, I don't think, would be, overpowered or anything like that for just saying non-land permanents. I think that would be pretty fair to say, you just blinked everything. Cool, everything is gone. Creatures is typically what is going to be blinked. That being said, still. But 2 mana, again, for, hey, if you're playing into your friend's Blink deck and you have this in your deck, great. That being said, this is pretty specific in what it does. If you're not playing against a Blink strategy or someone that's casting things from exile, then you're not really going to get any benefit out of it. That being said, it does have cycling, so you can get rid of it and get something else. So, if in your pod you typically play against Blink decks, this could be a good include. And if you've got a way to benefit from that cycling, potentially. If you've got a cycling deck specifically, of course, this could definitely come in handy for you. A very interesting card. And then going from Don't Blink, we got our last card with Blink. And sorry, I just scrolled down too far, so you just saw a little bit of that. That's okay. Blink is a saga that costs 2 blue and a black. The first one is choose target creature, its owner shuffles it into the owner's library, then investigates. This one's very interesting because the second lore counter is then down there. Like, it's not sequential. It goes 1, 3, 2, 4. So you're going down to the next one. Create a 2/2 black alien angel artifact creature token with first strike, vigilance, and whenever an opponent casts a creature spell this permanent isn't a creature spell on turn. Interesting. Very interesting. Goes back then to the first one and then back to the second one again. Even with those kind of, obviously the first one's better. Like the first and the third lore counters are going to be better. Those are pretty brutal, actually. 4 mana to basically get rid of 2 creatures permanently is pretty huge. And it's not permanent. Yeah, it shuffles into a library. Chances are very likely, though, if you shuffle something into someone's library, they're not seeing it again in a commander game. Again, if they've got 85 cards in their library at the time that you do that, very unlikely that they're going to be able to get that card again unless they can tutor it back out, essentially. So yeah, basically permanently get rid of 2 creatures, basically. And then also, sure, you give them a clue token. Good for you. Yeah, that's a good replacement. So this is some decent removal. You can definitely see play, obviously, in Saga decks, and one that can manipulate counters, like, with proliferation, etc., etc., etc. Very interesting indeed. And again, interesting to see them kind of iterate on this concept of sagas. Again, going from 1 down to 2, up to 3, down to 4. It's interesting to see kind of what different kinds of things they can do with this. And I personally really like sagas and the direction they're going with them. So it's interesting to see, different sets with different, things with sagas. So that's it for today, though. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on all of these cards. I'm interested to see players. I think it's Gallifrey Stands. Did I get the name right? Gallifrey Stands. Yeah, I'm interested to see players and what kind of, crazy decks they can build around that. I expect changeling decks around, like, that kind of alternative win condition. But yeah, interesting to see kind of what you can do with that. Interesting to see, how bigger on the inside works in my Garth deck. I think it's going to be pretty crazy. And yeah, definitely something that can make a big difference on that. So yeah, let me know what cards out of these you're most excited for. Let me know if you're excited for, the Doctor Who cards coming out. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one.
This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.